Hey, it's Dr. Nuesse back with another video, and this is an update video. This is about a policy change, specifically from the federal government. So we're talking specifically about Job Corps, which is a part of the U.S. Department of Labor, and they recently made a change about how they go about marijuana testing. And this is a big deal because we're not talking about private business, we're not talking about state government, we're talking about the federal government. And change with the federal government often happens very slowly. I've made a number of videos on the potential rescheduling of marijuana to Schedule 3 and of saliva testing, which the U.S. Department of Transportation is in the process of implementing, but all of these happen very slowly. This change has been made, so the U.S. Department of Labor, and specifically Job Corps, has made a change to their marijuana testing policy. I want to go over all of that. First, before I do, please stay subscribed to this channel and make sure the bell icon is clicked so you get notified whenever I make update videos, because as soon as updates like this come down, I make an update video. I have an update video coming out very soon about the potential for saliva testing from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And also, if you are concerned about testing positive on a urinalysis on an upcoming drug test for marijuana, please visit exploroacademy.com. This is basically essential viewing if you are concerned about testing positive for marijuana. And use my preferred home drug tests to test yourself before going in to be tested, because this is the best way to ensure that you are going to test negative. I will leave links to all of that in the description box below. All right, let me read off the article, and this comes from marijuanamoment.net, and the title of the article is Job Corps Loosens Marijuana Testing Rules for Federal Youth Workforce Training Program. And I won't read the whole thing, but there are some very important points here. Let me just read the introduction. So Job Corps, the National Job Training Program administered by the U.S. Department of Labor, so this is a federal agency, has changed its drug screening protocol for marijuana in order to avoid punishing young people for using cannabis prior to using the program. So that's what's important. They're trying to catch people that are active users, not users from an extended period of time ago. So before, so way in their past, I guess. So though Job Corps is a drug-free and alcohol-free program, participants with a history of use are not automatically deemed ineligible. All new and readmitted students are required to be tested for drug use upon arrival at Job Corps. So drug testing will continue. Here's where the change comes in. So if you test positive for marijuana, then the participant is then enrolled in prevention and education services, and then they are rescreened a second time 40 days later. So if you test positive, you go through this education course, and then you are retested again 40 days later, and you're expected to then test negative. So here's the change. So prior to the new change, any positive on the second test was grounds for dismissal from the program. Now, under the new procedure, someone who tests positive for marijuana on the second test would not be penalized as long as there is at least a 50% reduction of the THC levels. So this is where the change comes in, and this is why. So what they're looking for is active use, somebody using in that 40-day period from the time they tested positive till the time they retested. So now, let's just say you test positive and your levels are, I'm making things up, but 150 nanograms per milliliter, and then you retest and your levels go down to 70 nanograms per milliliter. That's still over the 50 nanogram per milliliter cutoff. Under the old rules, you would then be dismissed from the program for testing positive a second time. So now, if you test at least 50% less, so from 150 to 70 would be over a 50% reduction, that would be then considered a negative test. They go on to say, the results will be considered a negative test attributed to drug use prior to enrollment. The student will stay in the program and receive relapse prevention services. And then let me scroll down here a little bit. And so this is important. We get into some important information down here about, they're actually using some scientific research. So here we go. So scientific studies show that the THC half-life varies between 5 and 13 days. And I've quoted this number on a number of different videos where I talk about how long marijuana stays in your system. Job Corps chose the longest possible half-life at 13 days to reduce the risk of separating students who are slow metabolizers and have abstained from marijuana. By choosing this longest scientifically determined half-life, other factors that impede excretion, such as dehydration, lack of activity, and body mass, they are all now taken into consideration. So again, what Job Corps is basically saying is that they understand that you can keep, so if you use a long time ago, you can keep marijuana in your system for an extended period of time. They're basically just coming around to the science and actually implementing it here. Again, I've talked about this on so many different videos, but what they're saying is that when you ingest marijuana, it can stay in your system because it's a fat-soluble substance for an extended period of time. And even if you stop using, you can still test over that cutoff limit. So what they're going to accept now going forward is if you test positive on your initial test, you need to reduce your levels in that 40 days by 50%. It doesn't need to go under the cutoff, it just needs to be reduced by 50%, and then they will count that as a negative test. I think this is a huge step forward, and again, this is something coming from the federal government. We're not talking about state government, we're not talking about private business or anything else. This is the federal government where it moves like a glacier, exceedingly slow. So I hope this was helpful and informative. Again, check out marijuanamoment.net to read the full article. Check out exploroacademy.com. Make sure you are home testing if you are concerned about an upcoming drug test, and I will be back with another update very soon. Until then, everybody, stay safe.